Hey guys, it's Sarah, and today I'm going to be talking about my favorite books that I read in 2017. 2017 was actually a pretty good reading year for me. I read a lot of books that were just meh, but I also read quite a few books that I liked, which was very exciting because last year I read mostly books that I didn't like. I feel like I just said the word like a lot, but anyway, let's just get into this list. So my first favorite of 2017 is The Emperor's Ostrich by Julie Berry. This was such a surprising book for me. I went into this not knowing anything about it, not thinking that I would even like it. It's a middle grade book about this girl named Begonia who's a dairymaid and her cow has gone missing. So she sets off on an adventure to find her cow, and along the way she meets lots of new friends, and it's just so cute. If you are a fan of Ella Enchanted, I think you would really like this book because it has that kind of innocent but fun and just really cutesy feel, but at the same time it like warms your heart and it's just a good time. I really liked this book, and I look forward to reading other books by Julie Berry. The next book on my list is Bird Box by Josh Malerman. This book is a post-apocalyptic thriller in which the world has had a sort of pandemic where there is something lurking in the shadows, and when someone looks at it they go crazy and they kill themselves and kill the people around them, and so the world has just become very unsafe and society has kind of crumbled. And the main character is this woman named Mallory, and it's kind of told from two different timelines. One of the timelines is all the events leading up to the pandemic as well as after it has happened and how she survives, and then current time is when she has two children and they have kind of run out of supplies where they're staying and they need to travel to a new location. There's a lot of scenes where I was genuinely afraid while reading this book because the characters can't really look at anything and you don't really know what the thing is that's driving people crazy, and there's never really like a true explanation, so it just leaves a lot of like eerie feeling while you're reading it. And they're actually making a movie. I'm not sure when it's coming out, but I know Sandra Bullock is playing the main character, so I really look forward to seeing how they do the adaptation. I'm hoping they do it well because I don't really know how they're gonna do a movie where you can't see anything, because that's part of why it was so good, because it's like in the character's mind and you also aren't seeing anything. So we'll see how it goes. I feel like I just said the word see a lot. I'm gonna be saying a lot of repetitive things throughout this video, I can already tell. The third book on my list is The Last of August by Brittany Cavallaro. This is the second book in the Charlotte Holmes series. This was another book that really surprised me. I kind of went into this series with very low expectations because it's sort of like a Sherlock Holmes retelling, except for the two main characters are actually descendants of the original Sherlock Holmes and James Watson. In the first book, through a series of events, Charlotte and Jamie end up at the same boarding school and they end up being framed for murder and they have to solve it together, and so they have an unlikely friendship. And then in the second book, Charlotte's uncle goes missing in London and so they have to go find him. And the plots don't sound that interesting when I say them out loud, but I really loved the writing of this. I thought it was going to be really cheesy because it gave me almost like Disney Descendants feels because they're like literally related to the original Holmes and Watson, but for some reason I still really enjoyed it. Like I said, the writing is really good and the storytelling is good, and I keep saying the word good, but it is just good. It's a good book. The second book was definitely my favorite of the two, which is why it's on this list, and it just took my expectations to new heights because again I didn't have a lot of high expectations reading this series, and I just loved everything that happened, and I love the way that the characters develop. I feel like they both are very interesting, and while they are reminiscent of the original Holmes and Watson, they are their own people as well. And the series kind of deals with a lot of serious topics and their relationship is very slow burning, and I just really like it. The fourth book on my list is Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy by Cassandra Clare. This is a bind-up of some short stories surrounding the character Simon Lewis, who is from the Mortal Instruments series. I can't actually say very much about this short story collection because it would spoil the Mortal Instruments for you, but all I will say is that I have always loved Simon Lewis. I didn't really like the Mortal Instruments overall, but he was one of my favorite characters, and this short story collection is so fun. I really like how all of them added up to almost seem like one novel with just like time gaps, and I just thought all the stories really flowed together and you got to learn a lot about a bunch of different characters, some of the characters from The Dark Artifices and the characters that we're going to be seeing in the next series, The Last Hours. I was actually really surprised at how much I loved this book. I feel like that's a theme on this list this year because these are just a lot of books that I didn't know I was going to like. So if you've already read The Mortal Instruments and you're about to move on to The Dark Artifices, I highly recommend reading this short story collection because I feel like it really enriches your reading experience because, like I said, it introduces you to a lot of different characters in that world, and it was just really cute and really fun and I really enjoyed it, and the ending made me very sad and ruined my life. In the same vein of Cassandra Clare, the next book on my list is Lady Midnight. I've mentioned this more than once on my channel, but I didn't really enjoy The Mortal Instruments. It took pretty much 2 years to finish that series, and it really dragged for me, and I only liked a few of the books. But because I loved The Infernal Devices, I just want to keep trying to read Cassandra Clare's books. So after I read Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy, I loved it so much that I immediately moved on to Lady Midnight, and it was so good. Cassandra Clare is definitely an example of an author whose writing gets better over time. Her world is just so rich and expansive, and I actually love that she keeps writing in the same world. I know a lot of people criticize her for that, but I love it, so keep them coming. I can't really say too much about Lady Midnight because it's like the 12th book in this world, but all I can say is that the main character is a girl named Emma, and she has a parabatai named Julian. For those of you who don't know what a parabatai is, basically it's like your fighting partner. There's this whole like ceremony on how you become bound to this person, and it makes your fighting skills better and stuff. It is forbidden by law for parabatais to fall in love, and basically her and Julian are in love, and so there's a lot of drama surrounding that. And like any other Cassandra Clare book, there's a huge cast of characters in this, and I really liked all of these people. Like I said, The Mortal Instruments wasn't my favorite, and I only liked a few different people, but so far with The Dark Artifices, I've loved every single little character. I love them so much, and I know that when I read Lord of Shadows, it's gonna literally ruin my life. The 6th book on my list is The Roanoke Girls by Amy Engel. This is a book I've talked about quite a few times on my channel because I really liked it. It is a thriller about this girl named Laini, and in the beginning of the novel, when she's 16, her mother commits suicide and she has to go live with her grandparents, whom she's never met. They live on this estate called Roanoke in a very small town, and she quickly learns that the women in her family have sort of a dark past, and there's a lot of secrets in her family. Most of the women have either committed suicide like her mother, or they've run away, or something else bad has happened to them. The story is also told 10 years later when she's 26 and she finds out that her cousin Allegra has gone missing. She returns to the Roanoke estate to try to find out what happened to Allegra, and she's kind of sucked back into the dark secrets of her family. It's a very twisted and dark and sort of fucked up read, but I really enjoyed it. I loved the writing style so much. The next book on my list will be no surprise to anyone, and that is Before the Devil Breaks You by Libba Bray. This is the 3rd book in the Diviner series, and as many of you know, it's one of my all-time favorite series. I even have a Diviners inspired tattoo on my arm that I got a few months ago. For those of you who may have missed me going on and on about this series, basically it is set in the 1920s in New York, and the first book centers around this girl named Evie, and she's living in the Midwest, but she has this gift where when she touches an object, she can kind of read the owner's secrets, and so she kind of does this at a party and she ends up getting in trouble, so she gets sent to New York to live with her uncle who owns an occult museum. When she arrives in New York, there's been a series of murders committed, and her uncle is called in to help with the case because there's a bunch of like occult symbols with the bodies. As they're solving the case, Evie ends up meeting a lot of other people who have powers similar to hers. And then as the series goes on, the characters sort of find out the secrets behind their powers, and I can't really say much about the other books because they would give things away, but the reason I love this series so much is number one, the writing, it's so good, and there is a lot of like 1920s slang, and I just love that in the writing style and the dialogue. The audiobook for this series is so good. It's narrated by this woman named January Lavoie, and she does the best voices for every single character. It's just such an experience. The other thing I absolutely love about this series is the representation. One of the characters is African American and he's from Harlem. Another character is Chinese and Irish and her parents are immigrants and she's also asexual. Another character is gay, and then there's another character who's Jewish. There's probably other representation as well, but I'm forgetting it right now. And what I love about the way Libba Bray does it is that it is historically accurate to the time, because obviously a lot of these marginalized populations were not accepted in the 1920s, but what she does is she makes the main characters very woke and aware that the society is not as it should be. Even the like straight white characters, they all just form unlikely friendships, and I just feel like it's done well and handled with care. And yeah, if you haven't read this series, please read it, because you know I've been ranting about it for a couple of years. And finally, my most favorite book that I read all year is Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. This was such a surprise to me. I talked about this in my November wrap-up. I went into this book not knowing anything about it, and I had previously read Daughter of Smoke and Bone, and I didn't really like that series very much. I stopped reading like halfway through the second book. I went into this with like the lowest expectations. No expectations, honestly, because I didn't even know what the plot was about, and I was so blown away by how good this book was. Like, I could cry thinking about it. It's so good. I literally own 2 copies because I love it so much. I have the UK edition as well as the American edition, and they're just so beautiful. This book is very hard to describe, but I will try to describe it with enough detail that you can kind of get a gist of what it's about, but not too much detail because I feel like it's really good to go into this book not knowing much about it. Basically, our main character is named Laszlo, and he is a librarian in this city, and it's kind of like, I don't know if it's like a caste system, but it's sort of like based on your profession, you are ranked with importance, and librarians are pretty low on the totem pole, and they basically just do research for anyone that needs it. There's these people called scholars, and they just come to them and ask them for things. And so Laszlo becomes a librarian by chance because he's actually an orphan, and he ends up at the city's library randomly, and he ends up just staying there. I know I'm already not making sense explaining this book. He is made fun of a lot because he often has his head in the clouds and everyone refers to him as a dreamer. He is absolutely obsessed with this like lost city. I guess I would consider it something sort of like Atlantis, where a lot of people don't think that it existed, but he does, and so he spends his life like doing research and trying to find clues about it in the different books in the library. And so little does he know this city really does exist, and he is given an opportunity to go to the city and help solve a problem. So he sets off on this journey to go to the lost city. It's called Weep. I guess I should have said that the city was called Weep before, but anyway, it's called Weep. So he gets to go to Weep, and that's basically where the story takes you. And then there's a lot of other characters, and it's really interesting. I know I did a really bad job describing it, but all I can say about this book is it's so atmospheric, and the characters are just my precious cinnamon rolls. I love them so much, and this book is so heartbreaking. Like, it tore my heart out of my chest when I was reading it. I was so sad and distraught. I literally screamed when I finished this book because it was so frustrating, and I absolutely can't wait for the next book in this series. I think it's supposed to only be a duology, so I'm really, really excited. I don't really know how to say more about this book without giving things away, but something that I really love about it is that I feel like it broaches a lot of serious subjects. When Laszlo gets to Weep, there is this group of characters that everyone in the city absolutely hates, and so it sort of explores the idea of like vengeance and hatred and really exploring why you hate people. And I don't know how else to describe it. It's just really good. Everyone should read it. But that's pretty much it for my list of favorite books that I read in 2017. I absolutely love every single book on this list. I implore you to read all of them. Let me know down below what your favorite books were this year. And yeah, thank you all so much for watching. You're all beautiful. Have a nice day.
Send me your location. Let's focus on communicating, 'cause I just need the time and place to come through.